CNA analysts have been asked to evaluate the response to every major hurricane and storm to hit the United States since Katrina. So, with the next hurricane season on the horizon, we asked some of CNA's emergency management experts for insights on the major lessons learned over the years in hurricane response. The first one they highlighted was a significant improvement in communications among first responders.
So after Hurricane Katrina, first responders could not communicate. And this was an issue of both the infrastructure, which was devastated, but also just the groups of people that you had. You had state and local, you had different states, you had federal, you had National Guard, and all these groups came in with their own equipment and with their own common operating procedures. They weren't even on the same bandwidth as each other, so folks just couldn't talk.
The communications interoperability issue had also reared its head 4 years before in New York on 9/11, and the Department of Homeland Security's Office of Emergency Communications was working on solutions.
So since Katrina, DHS has taken the lead in organizing to make sure that, first of all, equipment has been standardized. They encourage the use of 800 megahertz radios, but they've also provided extras in case of emergency. So that's extra radios, extra repeaters, extra gateways, and things like that. They've also developed a capability for mobile cellular, so cellular on wheels, which is lovingly referred to as cows. But this is just one piece. Equipment is just one piece. You also need the training and the exercise to be able to use this equipment in case of emergency. So we saw this. We saw the impacts of this in Florida and Texas, where interoperable communications were improved. And looking forward now, we just have to make sure that continued investment is made to maintain the capability as well as to build it in the future.
Other important lessons helped pave the way to smoother evacuation and sheltering, though there are still bumps on the road.
Well, before Hurricane Katrina, a lot of the folks down there failed to evacuate despite warnings. Many just weren't sure what they were going to find in shelters, but a large number didn't evacuate because they were worried about their pets. And at that time, most shelters didn't accept pets. I think after that experience, there was a lot of refocusing on mass care planning and shelter planning. And in fact, when we looked at the response to Irma in a jurisdiction in Florida last year, we found evacuation went much better. And all of the shelters there had plans to take pets or refer them to pet shelters. And I think it's just one piece of a complex problem, but we're learning.
The past decade has also seen a major shift in the way emergency managers think about the private sector and the role it can play in the procurement of food, water, and medicine.
Yeah, governments simply can't provide everything that's required in the aftermath of a disaster. And so the private sector has recognized this and has stepped up time and again to meet the needs of survivors in the immediate aftermath. One great example is the Budweiser commercial during the Super Bowl, where people got to see a brewing line, a bottling facility actually bottling canned water to be provided to survivors. Or even the Tide Loads of Hope commercial, which shows a mobile laundromat that helped families return to normalcy by having clean clothes available to them as they tried to recover from a disaster.
Among emergency management officials, this is part of an increasingly important approach called whole community. CNA has conducted a study, for example, showing how grocery distribution warehouses in the Los Angeles area could support the nutritional requirements for much of the metropolitan area in the aftermath of a catastrophic earthquake. Such approaches could get resources to those who need them more quickly and affordably than flying supplies into a disaster zone. But making arrangements in advance is a significant challenge.
So the challenge is the planning. The planning has to be happening at all levels. So federal down to local, but also heavy involvement of private sector at that local level. For example, in Florida, a group of federal medical responders were waiting for equipment and supplies that were available at local warehouses. If they just had the mechanisms to make sure those needs were filled locally, it would have happened that much faster. But planning at that level of detail is extremely difficult and time-consuming, but it just has to get done.
The experts at CNA agree. For all of the improvements in the disaster response system and all of analysis that has helped make it possible, there's still more work to be done to ensure the response to the next hurricane is always better than the response to the last one.